Good morning and welcome to the February 27th, 2025 Board of Police Commissioners meeting. In the absence of a chair and vice chair, I would like to call the meeting to order. Please note that all board members present have taken their oath of office for 2025. And I'm now going to pass this over to the city clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Gulke. We acknowledge that we are here on the traditional lands of the Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call home. The first order of business is to appoint a chair for 2025. And with that, I will ask for nominations for chair from board members.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Bither.
Mr. Bither, do you accept the nomination? Are there any other nominations coming from commissioners? With that, if there being no other nominations, congratulations, Commissioner Bither. By acclamation, you've been appointed chair of the Board of Police Commissioners for 2025, and we will now turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Jim. The next order of business is we need to have nominations for the vice chair, please, on the board.
I'll put my name forward if that's permissible.
Okay, are there any other nominations? All right, well, hearing none, so Constable, you are the new vice chair. Thanks, Robert.
Lovely, thank you.
Well, this was very easy, I think, this morning. Thank you. We'll move on to the next agenda items. First one is the adoption of the meeting minutes held on January 21st, 2025. Can I have the motion to approve the the meeting minutes first? Thank you. Councilor Shobna. Do we need a seconder, right? No. Okay. Thank you. And all in, can I call the question? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, carried. Well, we'll move on to the first report. Can I ask Chief?
Mr. Chair, I will need approval of the minutes from the January 21st meeting.
Okay, thank you. No, we did the minutes first, and we are going to call for the public agenda now, the approval. Sorry, I'm reversing that. The next is the approval of the public agenda. Can I have someone make the motion to approve the public agenda, please? Thank you. I will call the question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, hearing none, carried. Now is the first report, PO 25-6. Chief Sheikh, could you please introduce this report?
Yes, Amy Balfour will go through that report for us.
Good morning, members of the board, executive, members of the media. This morning, the report in front of you is a report that we provide twice a year. It's a 10-year crime comparison of the City of Regina, not to be confused with the report you receive every July, which is from Stats Canada, which reports comparisons across the country specific to the CMA. So that would include things like Pilot Butte, Lumsden, etc. The one in front of you is 10 years of data that we provide on crime counts. It is not also inclusive of crime severity or crime rate. We do this intentionally so that the City of Regina, the board, and our leadership have consistent methodology throughout the years. In 2024, Regina recorded 19,761 police-reported crimes, which is a 4% decrease compared to the year prior. Crimes against the person declined by 1% due to reductions in homicide, attempted murder, serious assaults, and robbery. However, sexual assault, sexual interference, and non-consensual distribution of intimate images increased. Property crimes fell by 7% due to increases in motor vehicle theft, break-and-enter, and mischief. There were small increases in parcel theft, so these are things like Amazon packages being stolen from front doors, shoplifting, and bin fires related to arson offset some of these reductions. And other criminal code offenses rose by 1%. In total, crimes in Regina dropped 4% compared to the year before, but that is an increase of 5% compared to the 10-year average. These include crimes against person, crimes against property, other criminal code violations, and exclude traffic and drug offenses. Violent crime reduced by 1%, but is up fairly significantly since 2015. There were 6 homicides in 2024, the lowest in a decade, with attempted murders at 19 cases. There was a slight decline in assaults, but 39 of those of note are domestic related. This should not be surprising since the province of Saskatchewan has been documented as having the highest rate of interpersonal violence for some time. Sexual assaults increased by 22%, and other sex crimes are increased by 63%. Other sex crimes include things like sexual interference, luring, invitation to sexual touching, and so on. Robbery was down 13% from the year prior and up 27% from 2015. A recent robbery report completed for our internal purposes showed that 42% of those were cleared by charge. The vast majority of these are street robberies, where 2/3 of victims and offenders are unknown to each other, and 1/3 are known. We also had a slight decrease in assaults, but are up 36% since 2015. Level 1 assaults, which are those with the least harm, increased by 4%, while level 2, or what we call assault with a weapon, decreased by 3%, and our very serious assaults decreased by 18%. Like I mentioned before, 39% of total assaults reported to the Regina Police Service in 2024 were domestic violence cases. Sexual assault cases increased by 22%. There were 225 cases in 2024, which is an 80% rise since 2015. We have had a long-standing relationship with the Sexual Assault Center, and we work diligently to have people who are assaulted report to us, so we have had these increases for some time. Other sex crimes are up 63%, which exceeds our 10-year average, and non-consensual intimate image distribution remains elevated. Robbery decreased by 13% from 2023, but is up 27% from 2015. Kidnapping and forcible confinement are below the average of 16. Criminal harassment, there are 19 cases, which again is below the average over the last decade of 23. Crimes against the property had our largest decrease of 7%, totaling 11,128 incidents, 1% decrease from 2015. Motor vehicle thefts are down 15% compared to last year and significantly compared to 10 years ago of 44%. Theft, which excludes motor vehicle theft, so this will be theft under 5,000 and over, increased by 3% and 13% from 2015. Of those, shoplifting and parcel theft, like I mentioned before, with things stolen from your front door, are the key drivers here. Break and enter decreased 19% from last year and 13% from the 10-year average. Residential B&Es are down 23% and business B&Es are down 18%. Mischief and willful damage decreased by 20% compared to last year and even higher at 23% from 2015. Arson, however, has an increase of 25% compared to the year prior. 52% of those arsons reported were bin fires, 26% were to structures, so things like garages and sheds, 20% other, and 2% to vehicles. Other criminal code violations include procedural offenses, so breaches, failure to appear, and other court offenses are increased by 1% compared to last year and 9% from 2015. Of those, 89% of this category are procedural offenses, so these are things that the court would lay when somebody doesn't attend court, so on and so forth. CSA offenses, or controlled drugs and substances, have a decrease of 7%, 73% since 2015. But of note, there was a significant change in the law, so 73% as a decrease is because of our direction to not charge for simple possession. Now we focus more on trafficking, particularly of meth and fentanyl. There was a decline in major drug possession, as I mentioned, and this is related to prosecution policy shifts. Our traffic violations, so our criminal code traffic violations fell 14% from last year and 43% from 2015. There were several fewer incidents of evading police, failure to stop, and impaired driving. Our traffic tickets are increased 7% from 2023, but are down 49% from 2015. Of note, officer-issued tickets declined 27%, but automated speed enforcement has increased 49%, offsetting that. Our calls for service have changed. They're 5% less in 2024 versus the year before, and 3% less than in 2015. False alarm calls specifically dropped 54% due to enhanced verification with the alarm companies. So overall, crime is down 4% compared to last year, with an increase in violent crime, a decrease in violent crime, but an increase in sexual offenses. Property crime fell mainly due to break and enter and motor vehicle theft declines. Drug charges continue to decline, but our investigative efforts related to trafficking remains a serious concern for our community. Traffic offenses continue to decline as well. However, the success of the automated enforcement is playing a bigger role in our enforcement in the city generally. Police calls for service are decreasing, particularly for false alarms. And that's all for me, thanks.
Thank you for the report. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I just had one question around the break and enters for the other category under break and enter.
Sure. Is the question, what is that?
Yeah, just what is what's kind of included?
So other things like detached sheds, garages, that kind of thing.
Can I have a motion to receive and file the report? Thank you, Councillor. I will call the question. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll move to the next report, which is PO-25, PO-25-7. Chief, can you please introduce that report?
Yes, I can. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the public, the media, my staff, all the board members and the mayor. Welcome, everyone. So you'll have the stats in front of you. What I try and do is a quick summary and share some of the good news and some of the stuff that we've done in that last month as well, just so you're aware, and anybody listening are aware that the stuff that RPS are doing. January 25 showed a decrease of 30.7% crimes against a person. So it's 83 people less victim of crime. Also saw property crimes increased by 10%. There was a decrease of 38.1% in robberies, a decrease of 47% in assaults, and a decrease of 29% in break and enter reports. Arson continues to rise, and the majority of that are to bin fires, so we still need to work in partnership to look at addressing that, see if there's ways that these bins could be emptied sooner, or ways of working with the city and a fire to address that. But arson still continues to increase. Just some highlighted stuff. In December, there was a homicide with an incredible investigative stuff by our homicide team. We managed to arrest somebody at the beginning of January and charge him with homicide. Robbery, there's been some great work, investigative work, in regards to our robberies. And as you know, like I mentioned and Amy mentioned, robberies are actually down. And that's because when we do have robberies, we do everything we can to solve them. January the 1st, police were dispatched to residents of 1400 block of Cameron Street to report of an armed robbery. Initial information indicated the victim was approached by gunpoint. Suspects demanded personal items. Short while later, officers located the suspects, arrested them without incident. January the 4th, police were dispatched to a business of 2200 block of Victoria Avenue to report a weapons offence involving a firearm. Information received that two suspects were outside the business holding a firearm. One of those suspects approached the victim demanding items but was unsuccessful. Short while later, police arrived, located the suspects, arrested them, and recovered an imitation firearm. January the 15th, police were dispatched to 3100 block of Fifth Avenue for a report of robbery. While there were a number of victims that had been threatened with a knife and had property stolen, police began a thorough search using a canine and located the suspects a short while later, again, arrested and charged. January 16th, 45-year-old male faced charges following a robbery which took place in December. That evening, an officer was dispatched to a business on 900 block of Arcola Avenue to report of a male that entered the establishment, threatened staff with a knife and stole money. The suspect fled the scene, but thorough investigation again in January, while officers were on an unrelated call, they recognised a person from description, arrested him on description again, dealt with that person. Firearms offences. January 24th, police were dispatched to a business of 40 Hatchington block of Harbour Landing Drive to report a firearms offence. Information received indicated that gunshots were heard coming from inside the building. Police attended. Investigation resulted in discovery of a loaded firearm as well as damage to the floor consisting of gunshots. As a result of investigation, 17-year-old male was charged with multiple offences. January 30th, officers dispatched to 1100 block of Victoria Avenue to report a firearms offence. Information received that was individuals in the building what appeared to be having a firearm. Shortly after, officers took 4 suspects in custody. 2 of them were charged with a total of 8 offences, including weapon offences and breaches. As you know, we go to a lot of overdoses. Last year, in 2024, there were still too many, but there was about 41 less than the year before, so that's positive news. We were responding to 7 overdoses in January. Unfortunately, 2 were fatal. Just giving an update on a complex need shelter. For the last 6 months, we've, with the government and us working in partnership, we don't bring everybody into the cells that we would do the traditional way. So last month alone, we took 71 people to the complex need shelter because they get the social work, they get all the extra care and support there than what we can't give. So that, since it's been up and running, we've taken over 400 people there. I just want to give you just an update on some other stuff, and this is more for the benefit of the newcomers to the board as well. Last year, we introduced biometrics into some of our cells, and that was following a death that happened in custody in August 23. We were the first in the country to go live, and what we're doing, we're sharing that best practice across Canada, and it's hit internationally now, across the world. People are looking at what we're doing here for biometrics, and since we've had that up and running, at the end of March, we've saved the lives of 5 people. Just want to give you, just again, and you would have heard in the press last week, and my detective inspectors here, we're doing a lot of work on drugs, and Amy alluded to that. Mere possession, often we don't charge now because the Crown's views, but we're doing everything we can, our drug unit, proactively to target drug traffickers, especially the ones with fentanyl, cocaine, meth. And last week, you would have seen the press release, we had a phenomenal seizure, took a lot of fentanyl, cocaine, money, firearms off the street, and we arrested some people and charged them. Again, in the last 12 months, we've had some of the biggest drugs bust in history in Regina. So again, I want to recognise that and recognise my drug unit who are doing phenomenal work, their investigation, their proactive stuff, their surveillance, and obviously, and linking that to overdoses. Obviously, we can take more drugs off the street. It's going to reduce overdoses. It's going to reduce people dying from drugs. So again, credit to my staff for the phenomenal work they're doing there. And I just want to give an update as well, again, for the benefit of the people who've been on the board for some time. Our plane was not in use for a number of months because it had damaged. Well, we finally got it back, and in the 3 weeks we've had it back, we've realised how much we've missed it. They responded to 55 calls for service, 13 arrests, and 17 charges as a result of them in the air. And what people don't realise is over the last few years, we've reduced pursuits, we've reduced people damaging property, all the car chases where they may hit into other vehicles, they may get injured or whatever else, because a lot of the times when the plane's up, we can ease off on the pursuits, and the plane will keep an eye on them and direct us in. So again, I want to give you updates, some positive stuff since the plane's been back up. Positive drug arrest, as you've seen in the media last week, and incredible use of the biometrics. And overall, as Amy alluded, yeah, a lot of the crime, some of the crime trends has gone up in the last 10 years, when the last year it's coming down. So what I want to see is that crime trends continue to come down. And that's just a quick summary of last month and just some stuff for the benefit of the new members of the board.
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any question? Robert?
Just to quickly emphasize, because I really don't think enough can be said about it, that, previous to the former report, their crime stats are down. Year to date, we're down. Although we're seeing fluctuations in certain categories, overall, we're on a downward trend, which is really good to see, specific to the kind of climate that we're in currently within North America. Further to that, the fentanyl seizure, I don't think enough can be emphasized. 1.3 million in street value, I believe. Tremendous seizure of narcotics and firearms, prohibited firearms, that would affect a vast majority of our population, and if not directly, then indirectly through the various crimes and statistics that we're seeing there. Again, especially in a time when our countries in North America are effectively on the hunt for fentanyl. And putting forward the resources to capture this type of activity, whereas we're ahead of that game. So again, tremendous work, and I think if we can keep it up, that's that's a good trajectory for us. The only one kind of outlier that I'll point out here is in relation to break and enters for businesses. We're seeing a bit of a spike in January in contrast to year prior. Just curious, do we know if that's mostly downtown? I'm just curious how that relates to our ARO program, and if we're seeing effect in that regard. Personally, working downtown, I can speak to seeing AROs almost everywhere. I keep bumping into them, no matter where I go. I've been seeing the new ARO vehicles as well, so it's pleasant to see them kind of in the downtown core and hear the pleasantries of that program from the local businesses as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'll just give a quick response for you in relation to the business break and enters. I would say that they're happening in all parts of the city, certainly not isolated to downtown. In fact, we were just meeting about sort of this week's crimes, and I don't think there were actually any business break and enters downtown. But typically what we find with business break and enters is that it can be one or two people who can be prolific offenders. And so I know that our property unit and our criminal investigations units are working really hard, authoring search warrants, that type of thing, in order to hold those people accountable. So we hope to be able to have that trending down in the coming months.
Lovely, thank you.
Is there anything else from you, Robert? You good? Okay, sorry, she's next. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for your report, Chief. This is good to see that the numbers are decreasing in terms of crime. And but I just looking at the assaults here. You have level 1, 2, and 3, and can you just maybe explain to me what the difference in the different levels are and what that means?
Certainly, if you actually turn over that page on the back side, it does have the description of what level 1, 2, and 3 assaults are. So level 1 is what we would consider a common assault. There might not be injury at all or very minor injury. Level 2 would be assault with a weapon or an assault causing bodily harm. So anytime that there's a weapon involved, that's a level 2, or we would see a little bit more serious injuries. And then level 3 we would consider to be an aggravated assault. So those are the types of injuries that have sort of permanent effects. So those are the way that those are broken down. And you can see in terms of level 3 assaults that there is a very small number. So although it shows as a 100% increase, last year we had 1, and this year we have 2. So when we're dealing with numbers that are that small, clearly the statistical impact is a lot larger.
Thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Chief, I just want to echo some of the comments made by Robert next to me on the drug bust. I'm extremely pleased and very impressed at the work that you've done here, and I think it shows and tells traffickers that we are not open for their business, and I hope they get the message. Can you take just a minute for the people at home that are watching to explain the biometric piece? Because I think everyone here knows what that does, but you know, the life that was saved, I think, is an important piece to share with people.
Yeah, back in August 23, unfortunately, we had a death in police custody. There was a big inquest, investigation, and we, as the police service, didn't do anything wrong. However, we wanted to make sure that we were as thorough as we could, as diligent as we could, to ensure that there was no more deaths in custody. So any death in custody is one too many. So our team, led by one of our staff sergeants, done a comprehensive research across the country and across in USA to see if there's any tools, equipment that was out there to help keep people safe while they're in custody here. So that's when they looked at biometrics. So Staff Sergeant come and presented to the executive team. We sent him back with some more questions, follow-up questions, and then we put biometrics in some of our cells. We haven't got them in all the cells, by the way, and we're looking to increase that. When we put the biometrics in the cells going back to March, end of March, within 3 days we had a female come in custody, and we'd done a thorough search as we would, and we did 15-minute checks. But putting it into a biometric cell, you know, that biometric cell, that device that's it's concealed in that cell can pick up your heart rate, your breathing and everything else. And it actually identified to us that she stopped breathing. And normal cell checks, we'd have gone by and she would have looked like she was asleep under a blanket. And we may not have picked up on that. But the biometrics told us there was something wrong with her. And she stopped breathing. We actually got to go in there and bring her back because you know, we'd lost her, we brought her back. And we've actually saved about 5 people's lives as a result. So what we're going to be looking at doing, obviously through our budget, to see if there's a way that we can get some more money to try and put more biometrics in other cells. We've shared that, we were the first in the country to go live with that, and we've shared that across the country, even in Policing Insight books, which is hit internationally, and I've had people from England as well reach out, and our staff sergeant as well, Pierre, he's reaching out and he's sharing the good news, what's worked across here, across the world and across this country. So for any one's life we save, that's also, one, we save the life of somebody, that's the most important thing. The trauma that causes to that person, their family, to my staff, and the money that it costs us to do an investigation. So there's a lot of saves as well, but the most important thing is we're saving people's lives. And that's what we want. When people come to custody, we want them to go out safer. And and it's working so far, and it's positive news.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chief. I'll just like to, it's more of a comment rather than a question. With regards to the bin fires, and you said you're working to mitigate that, maybe one of the ideas, and I know it would have been floated before, is enforcing that bins be logged, or work with these bin rental companies to see if what can be done to keep the bins logged and not as accessible to the arsonists, so that employees have the keys. When they go out, they use those keys to unlock and put the stuff in the bin. Maybe that's an idea, I just don't know. I thought I'll mention that.
No, thank you. I think every idea is a good one, and that's a good idea. The other thing is having the bins emptied more regular. You know, because when the bins are overflowing and when they're emptied more regular, like you said, secure those bins. These are all good ideas, and I will work with City and a Fire to come up with stuff, but we need to come up with a plan, because there's a lot of time and effort and resources spent dealing with these bin fires. So, but thank you for that.
I have some comments and some questions as well. First of all, I want to echo some of the good news that my colleagues have mentioned about the fentanyl I think that's great. It undermines the hard work and the dedication that the service has provided. I will mention that and go on the record that it took more than 4 months for RPS to work on this and produce those results. I think that's very encouraging for the citizen. And the second thing I will mention is that I think this is my 5th year on the board. I have seen this is very consistently the numbers are going down in terms of the overall crime. And so I think that's another kudos to you and the leadership and the service itself that has been working very, very hard to see that. I know that there is always going to be some areas where we need to show some more. So one of the things that I see is the arson and sex offenses. I'm pretty sure there is some strategy to that. One particular thing I would make a note is the bin fire. As you heard earlier, that January we had 24 bin fire as compared to last year. So that's a quite an alarming number, and I'm pretty sure that there is some. Can you maybe provide a little bit of background to that, like?
So you'll note just from the extract that we didn't always break down arsons into bin fire, structure fire vehicles, so we don't have that information from January 24. We just know the total number from last year, so we don't have the breakdown in terms of how many of the 18 from last year were bin fires. So obviously, it looks like a large increase, but we don't have anything to compare it to. But typically, with those bin fires, we find that, again, they're prolific offenders, usually young people. And so if we can work cooperatively with Regina Fire and Protective Services through their Fire Starter program, educating kids, and you can anticipate that a lot of those are hard to catch them in the act if we're talking, dark back alleys in the middle of the night. And so certainly we do investigations in cooperation with fire to try and hold those offenders accountable, but it is something that has been definitely a pressure point over the last couple of years that we're continue to try and make some positive strides on.
Right. No, that's good. Would you think that there's something like camera registry would help in those areas? I don't know whether that's going to be limited to residential or we are going to be extending that to commercial and businesses?
Well, I think camera registry across any ward is going to help, because the whole idea of camera registry is that, as police service, when we're doing investigations, we know where's got cameras, and then when people who think about committing crime, it may deter them from committing crime because there's cameras. Also, neighbourhood watch scheme, which we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks' time. When we set up these programs, that will help, because anything will help as a deterrent, but also help as an investigative strategy for us as well.
Okay. I have one more thing in relation to the gun crime. Stats Canada report that was released earlier this week has mentioned, I can't remember what was that specific to Regina, but I think they talk about Saskatchewan per capita is quite high. So Chief, how would you react to that, like in terms of, like from the citizen's perspective?
So I think those statistics that we saw released earlier this week are a little bit dated. They're not current. They're not 24. They're not 25. And so obviously, from last year's statistics that our violent crime is down in the city. And so we appreciate that those 2022, 23 numbers are still important. But you'll see through our media releases, we are seizing guns off the streets every day. Over the weekend, we had 4 traffic stops that resulted in the seizure of guns. So are there more in the community? Yes. Are we doing our very best to investigate and seize those guns, hold offenders accountable? Absolutely. We have a number of teams. Obviously, our drug unit, through their investigation, drugs and guns tend to go together. So their investigations do help us in terms of taking those guns off the street. Also, our gang unit, typically, if you're thinking guns, you're thinking gang members. So their enforcement investigations are key as well. We also have a CRT, so crime reduction teams. Those teams' mandate is to focus on firearms. They work collaboratively with other CRT teams in the province. Have had a lot of success in terms of 3D printed firearms, so something new compared to even probably 22, 23, where we didn't see as many of those ghost guns being created. And then we also have an NWest investigator who is a federally funded position who deals specifically just with firearms. So we do have a lot of folks who are working really hard to keep those guns off our streets. And then with the opening of the Sask Firearms Lab just in the last couple of months, we're seeing a lot of gains already in terms of us being able to submit spent cartridges. They can scan those, they can compare them to other crime scenes, and we've had guns that have been traced to incidents in the US. So I think that we're doing a lot. Are there more guns than there were 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Yes, unfortunately, Regina isn't alone in that aspect, but I think the board and certainly the citizens of the Regina can rest easy knowing that we are devoting a huge amount of effort in terms of locating and keeping those guns off our streets.
If I could just add, it's a trade-off with, Laura Lee had mentioned the crime reduction team, that their focus is primarily firearms. So as a matter of fact, on the enforcement, you're going to be retrieving and obtaining firearms, and it's going to lead to more arrests. So as the enforcement increases, your stats are also going to increase. So we look at it as a good thing as well.
Thank you. All right, can I have the motion to receive and file the report? Thank you. I'll call the question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, hearing none, carried. So can I have a resolution for the private session, please? Thank you. Anyone opposed? Carried. We'll recess for the 20 minutes and we'll have the media scrum as well. Thank you.